Welcome to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Extra Podcast, a 10-minute show for the gardener on the go. I'm your host, Joey Baird, alongside my wife and co-host,
Holly Baird.
This show is dedicated to the home gardener who wants to grow more food or has never grown at all. This program is sponsored by DollarSeed.com for your flowers, vegetables, and herbs. All organic seeds, all only $1 a pack. DollarSeed.com. And by WillowSpringsSoap.com. Handmade soaps using the cold kettle process while using traditional methods. WillowSpringsSoap.com.
To find more information about us and previous podcasts, you can log on to thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com and follow that great information there. Well, today we're going to talk about items that you need for canning.
It's fun to grow your own vegetables, but it's even more of a reward to be able to capture that freshness in a jar to eat it all year round.
Some of the items that you'll need for canning are, first of all, canning jars. Now, you cannot just use any glass jar. You need to use what are called mason jars, and you can purchase these at many different places. Sometimes different grocery stores will have them, hardware stores, farm supply stores. You can even purchase them online.
And also at reusable sites such as Craigslist.org or at yard sales during the summer months.
Right, and maybe you even know somebody who used to can, and maybe they have some jars. Maybe somebody at your church or your grandma or somebody like that. You also need the two-piece lids. One, there's a canning ring, and then there's the lid that you seal it with. You need a water bath canner,
which is a large canner that can house all these jars. Now, if you don't want or don't have one, you could use a large stock pot with putting something in the bottom, such as old canning rings, to elevate the jars off of the bottom of the pot, because you don't want that contact when you're processing the jars and the pot to connect to one another. You want areas so the water can get around the jars.
Right, and you want to make sure that you have at least 2 inches, for whatever jars you put in there, there's at least 2 inches of space available on top so that you can have room for water to sit on top.
Well, let's talk about the different sizes of jars that are available that you can use for canning. You've got the quart jar, you've got the pint jar, the half pint jar, and the half-gallon jar.
Right.
Now, the half-gallon jar, you have to have a special type or a larger water bath canner or stock pot to process those half-gallon jars in, and those are really only recommended for if you're making pickling something or preserving juice.
That is correct. If you also want non-reactive metal pots, a heavy bottom stock pot is always a good idea, or any stock pot really, but you want to make sure it's a non-reactive metal. You also need, or ideally, is some sort of other pot to prepare the ingredients in. So you're also going to need, which you can get pretty cheaply usually, or maybe you can find at the yard sale, is a can lifter, which is basically like a big tongs.
Or a claw.
Oh, yeah, or a claw. That's important to get the items out of the hot water, the jars out of the hot water. You also would need something to
measure the depth of the liquid in the jars.
Right, it's basically called like a canning spatula. Because when you can items, you need to have a certain amount of space between the food item, or whatever you want to call it, and the lid.
And that the technical term is headspace.
Headspace, that's correct. So you need that item. You also need things like measuring cups. A canning funnel is nice. Basically, it's just like a wide mouth funnel. Measuring cups, measuring spoons, and also ladles are good as well.
Right. Now with these jars, you have wide mouth and regular mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Now the wide mouth is, about 50% larger than the regular mouth. Now, what is the benefit to using one or the other, or is there?
For some things, if you're doing like tomatoes or larger pieces of fruit or vegetables, the regular mouth ones are good because they have the shoulders and they kind of keep that stuff in the jar a little bit better. Wide mouth is good for stuff that, like, maybe you're doing like a jam, something we're going to kind of be more scooping stuff out.
Right, and you could make jam in probably a quart jar, but it'll go bad before you are able to consume it all. So you want to think about what you're canning and what size jar is going to be most appropriate for when you open that jar up and use it.
And say maybe that you don't grow enough vegetables to can. Things that you want to definitely try to can are tomatoes that maybe you get from a farmer's market, or that you can purchase yourself, because canned tomatoes and tomato sauce that you buy at the store has a lot of that BPH in it.
Right, and you can can many more quarts for the same price that you can buy like 1 quart at the store. It's healthier, and you want to can items that you know are going to be expensive to buy over the winter months. If you can preserve them during the summer months, you're going to save money in the long run.
And there won't be that high sodium content either. So yeah, so those are a few items. Other good items to have is a hot pad, lots of hot pads, a kitchen timer, lots of towels because, you know, you're going to use those. Paper towel because you do have to wipe off the top of the jar before you put the lid on. Also, there's a little magnet wand that you can purchase. A lot of stuff you can purchase in a kit. And the magnet wand is nice because you need to put the lids in hot water so that
not the rings, just the flat portion.
Just the flat portion, hot water, to sterilize them, but also to soften that rubber that's on them.
Also, a good, reliable cookbook.
Yes.
You could take your laptop or your tablet in, but it's going to get dirty. You want a good, reliable source of information as you're canning, and you need to bring your patience.
Yes, that is very much correct. You need to be patient. And canning is not as complicated as people think it is, but, you know, that might be a secret between you and I. If you want to make your friends and family think that you're a kitchen magician.
Now, there's two things that, you know, we need to point out here. One, no matter how long or how much of an expert you are, you're always going to have jars that won't seal, and you're probably a pretty good chance that you're going to have a jar bust in the water bath canner. Can you talk a little bit about both of those?
Sometimes that just happens. Sometimes jars won't seal. Now, what you can do is you can wait 24 hours to reseal it again. Another thing that happens is that if the jar, you know, explodes or busts or whatever in the canner, that does happen on occasion. It happened to us. It had been a while since we'd canned tomatoes, and we were going to can tomatoes for the first time this past fall, and we forgot that you have to keep everything hot before you put it in the canner, and we just, haphazardly it happened.
To us, it wasn't that big of a deal. One, we learned our mistake. We showed it on our video series that you can find on our website. Plus, we had a lot of backup jars. We had nearly 750 jars, and I'd like to bump that to 800, and then at some point have all of them filled. And some of our listeners have that many jars and are successfully able to fill them every growing season.
And there's a lot of different websites that you can go to find good information about canning. There is a National Center for Food Preservation, and you can just Google that. And then there's also different Facebook pages. We do have a Facebook page. It's called Home Canning. And it's our Facebook page because you'll see for the profile image is the pear juice that we'd canned this fall.
Well, let's talk about a little bit about the classes that some people can take in their local area, and then we're going to talk about pressure canning here in a moment. So you've been to some of these canning classes, and how do you find out if you have canning classes in your area?
Well, I found mine through my local recreation department, but other ways you can do is you can type in Google or your favorite search engine home canning classes and type your zip code. You should be able to find things that way. If you have a local recreation department, you can contact them.
And it's not very expensive, is it?
No, not at all. And you get to take product home with you.
So it's not just sitting in front of a PowerPoint. You're actually participating in making these products and having an instructor or a master canner teaching you.
Yes. The one who does them for our recreation department, she is the master canner and food preserver for our county. And there's, a lot of these people out there, they go through the program to become master canner and food preservers. And luckily for us, she had decided to teach these classes. So maybe if you don't have anybody in the local area, you can maybe contact, if you have a local college, they might be able to direct you, a local extension office. They may be able to direct you to that food preserver, person so that they can maybe tell you where to find some classes.
So let's talk about, pressure canning versus water bath canning, because maybe to a new canner, they're unaware there's certain things you can't water bath can. So real quickly, run over some of the differences between the two, what you can in water bath and what you can't water bath.
Well, it depends on the acidity of the food. Most fruits you can water bath can, but a lot of vegetables you can't, like carrots, potatoes, green beans, pumpkin.
Now,
corn.
Green beans you used to be able to, and they've changed that, because I remember as younger, water bath canning for like 3 hours,
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, they have changed that. And many of these things have changed simply because it's just no longer safe. And you have to keep in mind that you can get very, 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 very sick if you do not can things correctly and use a pressure canner when needed. So you need to be aware. So if the recipe you looked up that says use a pressure canner for this amount of time, and you don't have a pressure canner and you're just going to use your water bath canner, you could get very sick and die.
You could possibly alternate it to freezing it instead of trying to preserve it in the canning form.
That is correct. So A pressure canner is a good investment if you're going to do a lot of pressure canning, or maybe you know somebody that you want to pressure can together.
Well, I'm Joey Baird.
And I'm Holly Baird.
And this is the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Extra Podcast, a 10-minute show for the gardener on the go. And it was brought to you by DollarSeed.com and WillowSpringsSoap.com. For more information, you can find us on our website at theWisconsinVegetableGardener.com.